Hello there, and welcome to the CP7 podcast. My name's Palm,
And I'm Andy.
and together we are Chrono Passion 7. Hello, and welcome to your favourite watch-related podcast. We've got a very special episode with a very cool brand. You might remember we did a show on the best summer watches, and Andy picked out a very cool brand with some very cool watches. Andy.
We are joined by the co-founder and the marketing powerhouse behind RZE. So welcome to the show, Huiy Tang. How are you doing today?
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me on the show this evening for you guys, this afternoon for me. I've been really looking forward to chatting with you gentlemen. So yeah, cheers.
Welcome to the show, Huiy. Yes, it's a Friday night. The dedication we've got is obviously second to none to get this show out to you. But what we're going to do first is a quick wristwatch check. Huiy, what have you got on your wrist?
So today I've got the new Fortitude GMT-S that's coming on 10/10. So whenever we drop this show, whether it's after or before, this is going to be the new release on 10/10 GMT-S of the Fortitude.
Nice, very nice. What's new about the S?
We wanted to take a sophisticated approach to the tool watch that we already have. So the Fortitude GMT is more of a tool-oriented, again, like pilot's design and adventure approved watch. With the sector dial, the textures and things like that, the Nighthawk is one of the pieces that is more versatile, but we wanted to offer two dial variations that were more refined, more sophisticated. So they have applied indices rather than the sandwich dial. They have applied logo as well as a sunburst dial. So yeah, just still the same elevated level and the same specs, but with a dial variant that might be more suitable for people who are less adventure-y or are adventure-y, but would be more looking for something that is something that they can dress up as well. So we did that with the Resolute previously. So there was a Resolute and then the Resolute Pro, which had all the refinements and upgrades. And that's where we introduced an enamel dial. And in this instance, we wanted to introduce this sunburst dial.
Beautiful watch. I am a big fan of the Fortitude, which we will find out all about a bit later on. And to see Huey's watch, you can see that in our show notes on www.chronopassion7.com. So open up a browser and look at the show notes as we go through the show. Andy, what have you got on your wrist?
I have two watches on my wrist, on each wrist. So I've double wrist today. Why? Well, we can't do the RZE show without first wearing the Resolute Pro in medallion yellow, which is an incredible piece. I'm going to pause a little bit around it because we will get more into both myself and Palm's experience with these watches a little bit later in the show. But just, I absolutely love the yellow. It really, really pops with the enamel finishing, and we'll leave it at that. However, the next watch I'm wearing is a very special watch. I picked it up on, which day was it? It was on Tuesday. It's a Rolex 1625 Turnograph bimetal.
Ooh, nice.
And it is
Nice.
Absolutely,
Really nice.
just super crisp. No polishing on the bezel. The lug's still super sharp. No patina, which is strange for me. There's no patina on the sunburst champagne dial as well. And yeah, I'm absolutely in love with this piece. So I had to wear it because it's not coming off my wrist at the moment. So I'm wearing two watches, so I'm very lucky.
Gorgeous. Is that new old stock?
It's as close to as that term we like to use as you can get. There's not many of these turnographs what haven't been polished to death on the bezel. So when you find the bezel what's so crisp, and you will see this in the show notes, it's absolutely immaculate. So yeah, there's the odd little ding here and there, but there's no polishing. You can see all the grooves and everything. It's just a really special piece. 36mm as well. It's a really sweet spot for me. So yeah, really, really
perfect size Rolex.
Exactly, yeah.
Spot beautiful, beautiful. Palm, what have you got on the wrist?
Sorry, my Rolex. Let's continue.
Today, I am wearing, and it should be no surprise, my RZE Fortitude GMT in crimson red, which Huey kindly sent to review. I have to say, I've got a lot of good things to say about this watch, which we will go into a bit later on. It's solid titanium with an ultra hex coating. It's got 100-meter water resistance, and it just is such a cool travel watch, an adventurous travel watch. So you kind of, Indiana Jones kind of watch, I'd say. But that's what I've got on my wrist.
Excellent. So looking forward to getting into our experiences with the watches. But first of all, we just want to get to know you, Huiy. So we want to learn about your journey, and if you could just tell us how you got into watches and how that led you into where you are today with RZE.
It's actually a really wild story. I've been a watch collector all my life, and I had the fortune of becoming a watch collector, a watch enthusiast through my father. When I was really young, my dad introduced me to his watch. Having been a refugee from Cambodia and the Khmer Rouge, he had gotten a watch in a refugee camp that he traded with a soldier that had looted this watch. And what was really interesting was that he told me that when he had seen this watch at the refugee camp on the soldier who was trying to sell it, he knew that there was some characteristic about a Rado watch that could prove that it was genuine on the spot. And so, it being the ceramic case Rado that Rado Diastars are always known for, he told the soldier, if I can take this, throw it on the ground, stomp it into the ground, and kick it down to the road, I'll go ahead and I'll trade you 2 bags of rice for this watch. So, the soldier, of course, handed the watch to him. My dad went and did that, ground it into the ground, kicked it down the road, and he noticed indeed Rado's ceramic held up. It was an authentic Rado by his estimation. And so he made the trade. And so he brought that over to Canada. And I remember that watch when I was young. It was a representation of how specs or some characteristics in marketing around these Swiss watches were characteristics that would hold value and represent like this is a thing that if you know, you know. And so as a young individual at the time, like I think I was probably 7 or 8, we would go to pawn shops or flea markets or go through at the time in Canada, it was the bargain finder, but it's just the classified section. And my dad would go through and look for different ads, and we would go and take a look at watches and pick them up. And at the time, we didn't have a lot of money. So my dad just generally would pick them up and we'd have them for a week and then flip them. And it was just nice to experience all those watches. And it was always, at the time, typically Swiss and very reasonably priced in the early 90s. Yeah, that was the beginning of my watch journey. And that led to me being a enthusiast.
Sorry, Huiy, that is an incredible story. I think that's the most incredible origin story I've ever heard about someone actually going to watches. I just wanted to say that to you. But yeah, sorry, please
Thank you.
carry on.
Yeah, so that of course stoked my passion to go down the road of becoming a watch enthusiast. I still remember my first watch that was actually mine was like a Timex 8 Laps, really good watch. And from there, I went down a rabbit hole of just gradually collecting vintage pieces, usually just one at a time, and had the opportunity to experience them and move them on just to keep it within budget. But yeah, I never expected I'd eventually have a career in watches, but here I am.
It's an amazing story. Just to touch on your collection habits, are you a bit of a vintage guy as well? Or have you, with now being so involved with RZE, has it led you to a more modern route within your journey?
I'm still a vintage collector, actually, personally. I still have a passion for vintage, and that's what generally catches my eye. I'm still a really big believer in legacy and storytelling, and it just happens to be older pieces. And it's not that modern pieces don't have that, it's that they don't have them yet. I'm going to admit that recently I did pick up the Squale Master Titanium because I wanted to see what they're doing in titanium in the modern era. So that's something where sometimes I can't help myself, but generally speaking, still a vintage collector. So the piece previous to that, I think I bought a JLC Memo Box. So yeah, very, very different pieces for sure.
Brilliant. That was my first luxury watch for Memo Box. So there we go. Similar taste, I think, in the collection habits.
Huiy, moving to RZE now, where you're positioned in terms of price point and for what you produce, I think is quite incredible and amazing value. How do you maintain that quality with that price point? And what is the market you're aiming for? And why did you choose that price point and market? You sit kind of towards the middle of the easier price, the more affordable market. Is that what you wanted to do? And is there a reason why you wanted to do that?
Absolutely. Like we wanted to be able to offer true titanium tool watches that were going to be used as tools and had the specs that enthusiasts would love, but the mainstream could appreciate. That's something that I think as a brand we really were dedicated to doing, is to create tool watches that were accessible and still had features. For example, like in the Fortitude, it has the flyer or true GMT movement, has all kinds of little unique enthusiast nods like sandwich dial, excellent loom, things like that. And of course, on all of our collections, we have a on the fly micro adjust. These are things that can really be enjoyed by a mainstream customer or an adventurer or someone who's just picking up their entry level watch. And it might be an entry level watch that they find that's the last watch they ever buy. That's something that we really are okay with, because what we see ourselves as a brand is that it's a lifestyle that you can connect with and then have a true, I guess, lifelong adventure companion. Not to be cheesy, but it's something that we want, is for people to be able to easily access that piece that they feel like is a representation of themselves and a representation of value, and something that they can create a legacy with.
Is that the adventure side of it seems to be quite important? We look at your website, we speak to you, the whole titanium, the whole layout looks very utilitarian. Is that something that comes from both you and as co-founder and your other co-founder? Is that something that's very important to you? And how do you pick what you make as well as a result?
So Travis, my co-founder, or he was the original founder along with another one of our co-founders, Clarence. And so it was always a big part of the foundational belief of the brand. Was initially it was the Resolute, which was a field watch, and the idea was to be able to have something that was good for board shorts and the boardroom. It's something that is versatile, so it could be your one piece, like go anywhere, do anything, not so utilitarian that it's can be military inspired, but not so military that it's definitely for that field or whatnot, or it's not so dressy. And so that's something where we wanted to offer something at an excellent price point with those enthusiast specs where it's accessible for everyday adventurers. So you could be a desk diver or a deep diver when it comes to our, I guess, our dive watches, but the idea is still to make sure that it's not so down the road in one direction that it isolates any individual in particular. So one of the things that we wanted to do as a brand was we always saw that some of the other brands that are in the adventure field, the things that are demonstrated or highlighted in the lifestyle is something that is more extreme, whether monetarily or just physically as well. Is it's a representation of something that isn't necessarily accessible, or the influencers don't look like everyday people. And that's something where we wanted to bridge the gap to create both a product as well as a lifestyle that is accessible, to build a community around of everyday adventurers that might go hiking on the weekend and are typically just desk divers, and to have tools where they don't have to buy multiple watches for different scenarios, because A, it's just not as budget friendly, but B, being adventurers and being environmentally conscious and stuff like that, we wanted to reduce consumerism in a sense as well. Where of course, we're talking about watch collectors as well. So
Yeah,
that's
this is
that's
the
a different
consumer
audience for sure.
industry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a consumer industry, but it is something that we wanted to be all right with, is to be able to create something where, we started on Kickstarter and we wanted to have someone who maybe backed us on Kickstarter be able to buy that watch and then have that and be able to see the legacy of the brand grow. And we still describe it as an adventure that those first people helped us start, and then they're still on this adventure with us, and we never want to alienate that original customer. So from a design language standpoint, or from a original origin story standpoint, we want to have something that people identify with. In the beginning of it was always everyday adventurer. So really, I think we've worked hard to kind of grow that story and continue to stay true to it for our audience.
Great. way of looking at things and doing things. Yeah, very impressive.
Absolutely, and I think that's a nice lead through to my next question, and it's maybe a bit of a two-pointer. So one thing with RZE is all of your pieces are made from titanium. So where did that influence come from? What made you go, okay, that's what we want to go for? I know how it can link to that everyday adventure, being quite practical. However, the next part of the question would be, aside of that, how do you manage to work with quite a difficult material to machine, to construct? And your cases are quite angular as well, so I can't imagine it's the easiest to machine. How do you manage to stay at the price point you want to achieve whilst working with quite a difficult metal? So, two part. First is why titanium? The second part, how do you manage to produce the watches from this kind of metal at the right target price?
So why titanium is something that Travis and Clarence, in the foundation of the brand, they wanted to focus on a unique differentiation, of course, separating us from other watch brands, but also because the adventure standpoint. So looking at the material, titanium, of course, is lightweight, and aerospace titanium is commonly used for those types of things, for those characteristics of strength to weight ratio. And my partner Travis, the founder, is a commercial airline pilot as well. So from his work and his studies as an engineer, he wanted to work exclusively in titanium due to its physical property benefits. But one of the things that is known about titanium is that it's very prone to corrosion. And so he didn't want to produce a product unless we could do something unique to counteract that negative characteristic. So it's more common now to coat different materials to make them scratch resistant. But when the brand started in 2020, he worked to develop Ultra Hex, or to use Ultra Hex, which is our trademarked coating, which raises the hardness Vickers of titanium to 1200 hardness Vickers, which makes it 8 times harder than stainless steel, 5 times harder than grade 2 titanium, and then 3 times harder than grade 5 titanium. And so that was essentially the foundation of why titanium, not just titanium, but we wanted a hard coated titanium so that it could be built to last and have that longevity. And so that said, the cost aspect of it comes from, so when we developed those specs and the things that Travis wanted to do with the brand, it was always intended to stay true to the maintenance of that brand direction and the brand identity, as well as the physical, I guess, materials and things like that. So we've essentially stretched out the R&D costs for lots of these goods and taken a bet on these particular models that we chose to be flagships, and committed to iterating on them just a little bit at a time. And that's some aspect of how we're also able to save costs, is that we're not trying to develop something brand new all the time and launch it for the sake of launching it with just a minor tweak. One of the the dive watch in our collection, the Endeavor, has an NH35. It's really reasonably priced. Some people might say it's a little bit on the thicker side, or why is it an NH35? But there's no real benefit to making it a Miyota and making it a bit thinner and kind of increasing the price and innovating, in our opinion, just to innovate, because there are other excellent dive watches at that price point. And so to push up really is just to change our identity for the sake of change, in our opinion. Is like, we'll obviously increase price based on inflation and based on cost and material goods and manufacturing. But in terms of R&D, all of our R&D is actually, we've front loaded it and really worked at refining and iterating these models that we've been improving over the years. One thing that we also do is, for our bracelets and the end links, we've stuck to 20 millimeter lugs and the same design language, so that all of our bracelets are actually interchangeable with the core collections. Aside from the 18 millimeter and the Valor collection, everything else is the same bracelet, and we've developed a micro adjust that you can buy just the deployment for, and you can upgrade your old watch and the bracelet. If you have a Resolute and you have a Endeavor and they're both bead blast versions or whatever, you can swap the bracelet. Or if you don't mind that there's a difference in finish, you can just swap the bracelet. And we wanted to do that so that for design and making it so that when we're prototyping, we know there isn't going to be substantial differences, and we can work within that, avoiding waste and cost. And it's also great for the customer.
Can I just ask a question on that? So design and aesthetics is one of my favorite things about watches. I think the look is very adventurous with the titanium. It's got that kind of dulled look rather than shiny steel, so it already gives you that look. When you create the watches that you've made, what's the thought process? Do you have like a mood board and we want this, and you do a brainstorm? What elements do you all contribute and just say, right, we want it to look like this? How do you come up with that idea of how the watch should look and how it would perform during that purpose?
So I can't take credit for all the design, as Travis is primarily our designer, but it's something that I know is that him being inspired by utilitarian watches like Zinn and other tool watches that have used titanium before or hardened steels before and things like, as a watch enthusiast, we all draw inspiration from different areas, right? Like even with the Fortitude, someone might say, it looks like the Oris Pro Pilot, but my partner Travis would say, but it's just the bezel. It's a jet turbine inspired bezel, and that's something that he wanted to draw from, and then think about being a pilot. All of the other things, like even the handset, he aside from the GMTS and the original Fortitude GMT, like you have in the original Fortitude, he drew that handset, and then we had that mold made because he wanted to have a specific utility for those, and he wanted them to look a certain way. So all of our watches, we talked about wanting them to be designed so that they would be good for the tool function and they would be tool appropriate, but also, again, like not so tooly. So not a type A dial or a type B dial, so that it's not so specific. But at the same time, it's almost like not so much fashion, but it's fashionable. Because what we wanted to do also is to create what we describe as first dollar watches, not last dollar watches. So it's, if you're saving up for a piece or you've been looking forward to it, you're not going to worry that it's going to be a FOMO, snap it up, and then it's like never going to be there anymore. And we wanted it so that if you bought it and you saved up, you could wear it for a lifetime, or you could pass it on to someone. And it's not something where also like you're just trying to scratch an itch, and it's like a collector's watch. That's why we say last dollar watches. We appreciate everyone who buys multiple, but we're not expecting people to just like, I have to have that last watch, that one more watch to put in my drawer. We say we want all of our watches to go on adventures. So whether those adventures are to the office or to the outdoors, we really want to have that design aesthetic that's modern but casual at the same time.
So look cool forever, basically, right?
Look cool forever. And that's with the coating too, right? Is the intent is to allow it to look as it does forever. So we always joke, there's a tagline that we have is, these watches will escape all your adventures unscathed, but you may not. And that's something that we think is
morbid.
Unique. Yeah, and morbid, but at the same time, it is like something where I think when you're buying your first watch, even our Valor 38 being $349, it can be a lot of money. Like even though it's mechanical and stuff like that, we want to respect that. It being a first dollar watch, the first time that someone spends that much money on a watch, we hope it's a gateway, but we don't know that it is for sure. And that's something where we don't want these people who buy these pieces, our adventurers, to end up babying these pieces. And that's the whole intent of watch wearing, is that, like if it's scratch resistant, it's not scratch proof. So you're still maybe someday going to get a ding, or if you, bang it hard, you're going to get a dent or whatever. But it's generally speaking, you're not going to see any wear and tear on it for a long time. And that's something that I think when you're new to the hobby, everybody knows. I mean, even when you're old to the hobby, when you get a new piece and you get the first scratch, it's significant. And we want to kind of soften that blow a little bit.
Take the pain away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good ethic there. Good. Nice to see you want your watches to be beaten around and not babied, basically, because that's what they're made for.
To be enjoyed.
Exactly. And I can see that from your passion as well, and from the way you talked. And we've spoken once before as well, and you could just see we were really looking forward to this show because we thought, yeah, because we're gonna have a great time with Huiy and just get that message across for RZE because we are both very impressed with the brand. And I have another question. So, in terms of the future, you say last dollar watch, but in terms of you don't want everyone to buy every single watch you make. It'd be great if they did, but that's not your modus operandi. What would you see in the future? What would you see coming up? Where can you see RZE watches going in, say, 5 years or 10 years, or what would you want to be?
Yeah, so we really want to move into becoming a real lifestyle brand. So we refer to all of our customers or all of our people who own any piece of our gear adventurers, and we encourage people to kind of become a part of our adventure. We've done fifth pocket knife, so just a small pocket knife, as well as we've done this bag behind me, which is a guaranteed for life tote bag. Everything that we make or everything that we collaborate with someone to make, we want it to be within the same brand identity and to represent the same things of adventurers and things like that. And so you'll notice that we've released a couple models recently, like the Urbanist, which is our solar guaranteed for life watch. And at $259, it's something that we really believe is just, it's a ridiculous value. And to guarantee the movement for life, it's a bet on ourselves, really, to be honest, because we do believe that we're going to be here doing this thing forever. And when price point is a thing that you guys have asked a few times about, and it's something that because we believe we're going to be here forever, we believe that we're going to find more and more people like us that believe the same things. And we, of course, appreciate and love the watch enthusiasts, and we're building watches for the watch enthusiasts. But at the same time, we're hoping that this is a story that is shared beyond watch media, beyond Instagram, and really shared at dinner tables and shared amongst friends that are doing similar things, because we want to make it accessible so that everyone can be what we say assembled for adventure. We want to have this identity that really unites people who believe in the same things, and that's why we've invested in ourselves to make sustainability the biggest effort of our brand. Is that we want to keep doing this long enough that we can become carbon positive by 2030. That's something that's really important to us. But if you look at the brand ethos, it makes sense. We hope that everyone who buys into the brand, maybe mid-range, like at the Valor 38, might eventually graduate to buying a Resolute Pro. But we don't want to necessarily sell them a Resolute Pro at full price. We'd love that. But if you already have Valor 38 and you don't want to necessarily have that sit in your drawer, we allow you to trade it in. We call it the Re-Verified program, where we're going to give you 40% credit for any RZE watch that you have and allow you to upgrade it. And then that way, those pieces can go into circulation at 30% off retail with our scratch resistant coating and stuff like that. We're going to make sure that our watchmaker looks at it. It's good to go. And then people come in at a discount and they still get that same RZE experience. And what's unique about that is that anybody who follows the journey of their watches, and we mint NFTs or non-fungible tokens just to track our warranties and stuff like that. But you can actually look at previous pieces that have been traded in and then they've gone out again, and you know when they've come from. And so that's something that we wanted to work on for product circularity standpoint, is that most of watches are recycled at this point, in the sense, aside from movements and stuff, because steel doesn't generally get thrown away. Like titanium doesn't get thrown away. It's going to get recycled. So I could tell you the story of it being 80% recycled and 20% virgin or something like that. But in reality, it's titanium is the part that's going to last forever. And so how do we make it more than that? And that's building it into our brand, the idea that all of our pieces are interchangeable, like we mentioned, 20 millimeter lugs, so that you can have the bracelet come with it and go to the next one and things like that. But the product circularity of it, we think, is telling a story that's going to essentially allow people to create a legacy with their pieces and watch these pieces kind of represent a part of their life forever. I think that's a big part of it. And from a sustainability standpoint, all of our packaging is entirely sustainable. We're trying to move away from plastic. You'll notice that our watches ship in either an eco-friendly package, which is recyclable, or else it ships in one of our handy pouches. So we have these pouches that you can have all of your tools and things in organized in there. We think it's more functional, and we want to encourage people to look at it that way. And so, yeah, from a sustainability standpoint, that's something that we've focused on over the last few years to kind of get better at giving back to our community and doing things that they believe in rather than increasing pricing and then spending more on marketing for reach. We really count on our adventurers to do that for us.
Well, that's very impressive. Very impressive. Yeah.
Answers a lot of questions there. I just want to, because we really want to share our experience as well with the nice watches which you sent to us, but just a few things. Do you think titanium will always be the core material you will work with, or could there be new metals with the same kind of sustainability, what you might start to experiment with? And then just lastly, I couldn't help just get a little interested around the Ultra Hex once more. Like, how long did it take to develop? So that's your own innovation. Like, how did that actually come around as well? Like, how long did it take to get that to be able to protect the titanium to that level?
With respect to the Ultra Hex, sorry, we'll have to go back to the original question. But with respect to the Ultra Hex, it's something that I think it was emerging in the industry already, to be honest. Like, Travis would be a better person to ask about that specifically. But he's been in the industry a long time. He's been in the industry with his own brand since 2017. He founded another brand prior to this, and then he has a family in the business and stuff like that as well. And so as a watch enthusiast, he's kind of tracked some of this through his career. And so I think that it's not necessarily that maybe he was developing it from scratch, but it was developing in the industry. And then the application to titanium, I believe, was relatively new. Like, I think that it was used in steel and things like that, but the idea of using it in titanium, one of the things about titanium is there's a group of people or a following for titanium that really love that patina look on the titanium. Or there's, of course, like different finishing and stuff like that on titanium, which would be a bit like the original titanium would be a bit darker, and this looks a bit more like steel. So it's also the idea of creating something that also looks like a watch, but has those properties that are at least a third lighter. So something like the Fortitude GMT or the Resolute Pro that you guys have, we brush it. One of the features that you can't do with grade 2 titanium is you can't polish it. And that's what generally people think about, I guess, like fancy watches or quote unquote fancy watches or dressier watches, is that they're polished, but you can have a level of refinement that comes from brushing. But typically tool watches in the real tool sense, lots of those are bead blasted, right? So being able to coat that and make it look that way was also the idea of having a modern tool watch developed. So I can't say that technologically it was an innovation that was developed. I don't know what part that Travis played in that, but I know a lot from the design and material standpoint, that was the intent. And so speaking to different materials wise, we've talked within each other a little bit about that on several occasions. And because of that aspect of the titanium, the lightweight nature of it, as well as, like you said at the beginning, a bit more rare, more difficult to work with, because some things like bezel clicks and stuff like that, those are tougher to do with titanium, to have it feel satisfying, like the crown and things like that. But we've gotten so far in that it's just iterating, and it's worth it to us now, and we want to maintain that. I can't see or foresee in the near future us doing something in steel. We've talked about carbon and stuff like that in some senses because we've done unique dials and stuff like that. But there's something about maintaining our value proposition and the quality that we have, is that if we do something that's, a unique material that ends up being really expensive, we have to pass that on to the customer, and that customer is going to end up paying, upwards of $1,000 and things like that. And that can be alienating for our audience, we think. And that's something that it's not that we're shying away from it. As watch enthusiasts, we want to do it, but it just doesn't seem like an immediate thing. So one of the things that I do want to let you in on, I guess, is this will be the first, mainstream audience that we'll talk about too. But we're going to do a digital in titanium.
Ooh.
And that's something that we want to do it'll come out within the next year. We're working on prototyping and stuff like that. That's something where it can, like our solar Urbanus, it can be guaranteed movement for life. It can again be someone's entry level watch or someone's enthusiast piece that has something a little bit different than a standard Citizen or Seiko, or if they're looking at digital, then G-Shock or Timex. And yeah, I think it's an exciting thing for us to explore, because what we want to look at is that we feel like a high tide raises all boats, and we want to get as many people into watches as we can. And sometimes price is the primary barrier, and being able to deliver something at a reasonable cost, in our opinion, for full titanium, like full metal digital watch, it's going to be substantially cheaper than the G-Shock option. So that's something that we can promise.
Yeah, I was thinking G-Shock actually. When you said that, I think you're taking on G-Shock, I thought.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the concept. Maybe we don't see that, but the final product. Very excited to see what that will look like. So I think that leads to our experiences. And Pam, do you wanna kick this one off?
Yeah, I'll start off. And I tried not to give too much away my wristwatch check. I almost started listing off everything and I thought, no, stop. We're going to do a whole section on this. I had the RZE Fortitude GMT in crimson red. The reason why I chose this watch is I've always thought I travel a lot. So I need a watch that when I haven't actually taken it traveling. Don't worry, Hugh. It's been in London the whole time. But when I travel, I like to have something light and something durable and something that's safe, because there are some watches that I have that could put me in a lot of, not danger, but yeah, you never know. You never know what could happen. And I thought I want something that's at a good price point, durable, looks good, and this ticked all those boxes. When I had a look through all of your watches, I thought, this is really cool. It's red as well. I've got a thing for red, purple dials. I don't own any yet, but I've got just that. I just think that's the next thing. If it's not already gone, I don't know. And then what I also liked was the sand textured dial. I'm just going to go through the aesthetics at first. The sand textured dial, just from the picture, and then I'll tell you how I experienced it when I got it. And I'm glad I made that option, because the GMT function is excellent. It is just so cool. But my first impression when I got it was, wow, it's light. There is a little bit of heft to the actual case and the movement, so it's solid. It's a durable piece, you can tell. It's not something that's going to let you down. And I put it on my wrist and I thought, right, okay, that's light, but it fits so well. The bracelet's so well made. The case is so well made. The ProPilot X, of course, immediately, I think I saw that the comparison when I was looking at the photos. I've taken it to watch events, and I think with the bezel, I think primarily the bezel and that it's titanium. But I'm a huge fan of Oris, and I'm a huge fan of the ProPilot X. So to me, that was like, thumbs up for that one. So I thought that was a great comparison to make. But it's a really good watch in its own right, though. I do think the ProPilot X and this are very different. This has a sector dial, the little details as well. So the crown is a really good size, obviously being a pilot's watch, very good size. The dial again, the sand textured dial, and it's almost made kind of, it's not sunbursty, but it transitions from light to dark. And I thought that's such a nice touch. That comes into where you're saying you want it to look cool, but also last forever. And I think it definitely does that. The date wheel matching up with the outer minute ring being black as well, and then the date numerals being the same color as the GMT hand. I thought these little details are just and this is why I was asking about price point. How is this possible? Because the amount of detail and work that's gone into this, and then you open up the crown, you unscrew the crown, and it's red. Is it red because it matches the dial, or just as a warning that you've got the crown open?
It's a warning to let you know that the crown is open.
Yeah. Okay. And I thought that was because you cannot miss that. And I thought that was such a good little detail. It's the fine details that I love about this. Normally at this price point, you get a nice watch, well made, looks okay, but you don't get these kind of details. And that's why, and I'm not, again, when we have brands on, It's not because you're here I'm saying this. The only reason we're saying it is because we're saying it. If we say nothing, that's when people need to be worried. It's just really cool. Again, the bezel, I have no problem with that. It didn't have to be the same as that, but no, I think it was very good. The lugs, again, nice and rounded, I'll show you, it fits the wrist. We'll put the picture of this on our website at www.chronopassion7.com, and I'll show you how it fits around my wrist. It's just sits so well, perfectly. Highly impressed, very impressed with this. I think I made a great choice.
Thank you for the kind words. Really appreciate it. I mean, from a design standpoint, I mean, we are watch enthusiasts, and as much as Travis goes through all the design and of late, because I've been with the company for a couple of years as co-founder now, and we all look at all these things and say, like, matching date wheel, or we want to have those enthusiast things.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, like you say, price point, it's really a commitment that we decide that that's what we're going to do, and that we're going to probably do this for a while, and that we'll run this again, and it'll just be improvements on that. So that's why we can do it, I guess. We want to create things that we ourselves want, and that's a testament to kind of why it is the way it is. And so even the fit, we are smaller wristed at like 6.5 to 6.75, but not super small, but that's what we have the other pieces for. Something like the Fortitude, while it's 41, is deceiving. Someone might say it's 41, that's too big. But the thing is, lug to lug matters a lot. And there's an optical idea of what that size is, and then there's the way it fits. And so we've looked at other pieces that fit really well, and kind of Travis has worked to design it to make sure that it fits for the wrist. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, 12 millimeter width as well. Very, very good. Not too much. I like to know titanium's light, but I like to know I'm wearing a watch. I don't like having a watch that I just don't know is there. It's found a nice, cool little balance there. And yeah, that's also the sandwich. I mean, again, these little details, you can tell watch nerds have been have been activated during this design process, because it's even got a sandwich style. It's got these little tiny little design cues and little features that I think will catch the eye of someone who knows about them and is looking for them. Andy?
Gosh, so it was a funny one for me. I was a bit split in the decision process, as Huiy very kindly allowed us to just have free reign on the website and take a pick. And of course, the original one, which caught my eye, was the Valor, right? The 38 with the white dial. It just looked crisp, fresh, really, really nice. But then I was looking at the Resolute Pro, and that range in general. I like a GMT. I like complications, but I'm very much just like a free-hander, just set it and go kind of guy, no faffing, just put the watch on and style it out. I quite like watches from a cosmetic perspective as well. And if I was to be totally honest, if I was going to pick for personal taste, I would have gone for the green dial. The enamel also attracted me. Being a vintage guy, I've always appreciated enamel finishing. And why did I go then for the medallion yellow? Well, I know the colour was important to RZE. I wanted to understand why. And it wasn't a colour I would normally gravitate towards, being completely honest. But I am glad I did try it, because obviously it came in the summer period here in Barcelona, and just being outside in direct sunlight, and like with the shirt I'm wearing today, luckily I've got some wrist shots with this shirt, so everybody listening will see what I'm talking about. The yellow with the blue shirt I'm wearing today just contrasted brilliantly, and it was just such a refreshing pop of colour. And it's hard to really allow the pictures to do the dial justice. It's something you've really got to see, like, in person, in the metal, to really appreciate it. But I loved the dial. I love the black outlining around the hands, around the indices. The loom was incredible as well. And then, similar to what Palm was saying, the lug design, many watches tend to get a little carried away with the lug length. And the lug length on this is just perfect. It just fits so well. And I really liked the hexagonal kind of shape, and it's very unique. It's not like it's trying to be anything else, which again, for generally speaking, in these price points, it's refreshing to see. So you can see RZE are really trying to do something what's original to yourselves, which I can appreciate straight away. But just the angular design, especially on the crown guards as well, just the way they're going really thin and the shaping is excellent. And then lastly, I will touch on the bracelet. And the cool thing about this is you mentioned it earlier, like how do you get that glossy finish on titanium, which is typically like brushed, reminiscent of what you'd see, like, okay, maybe not to the ridiculous polishing of a Royal Oak, but it had that vibe to it. Even at this price point, it had that like little bit of bling factor, which I really enjoyed. I wore it to many events. Of course, being head of Red Bar in Barcelona, I wore it to a Red Bar event, and it was being taken off my wrist constantly because people like it, again. It's that bright yellow dial. Like, what is that? What is that? What you're wearing? And it was interesting. I was asking, yeah, what do you think to the brand? Like, what do you think to the watch? How much do you think it is? Stuff like this, and everybody were really surprised when I said the price point. And yeah, I think we definitely won some new fans taking this out on the road. I'll finish. I could talk a lot more, but I'll finish on the adjustability on the bracelet. Superb, and it's hard to find that on some brands what are a lot more expensive. I remember just removing the links to get the general size, and then the amount of accuracy you have on the easy adjust. Like, hats off, because it's not easy. It's some serious heavy hitting brands out there what failed to do this. Yeah. And yeah, it is easy with RZE.
Thank
there
you.
we go. So yeah, I'll stop at that. But excellent experience, equally really, really impressed. And as Pam says, we're not just doing this to butter up RZE on the podcast, because if we weren't impressed, we wouldn't be speaking so much. So I hope that conveys in the correct way. And yeah, thank you for the experience with the piece.
No, thank you both, and thank you for sharing your platform. I think touching again on the part where you guys asked, like, where do we see this in 5 years or 10 years, and being a vintage guy, and like going back to my watch story, and initially like saying, I never spent $1 on a micro brand until I met Travis, and he told me that he made a super compressor. And so we have a true super compressor that it's now out of stock, and we don't see us making it again in the near future. But as a watch enthusiast, meeting someone to tell you that, oh, like the JLC patent expired, and so we can make a super compressor. So you know what? I'm going to make one out of titanium because I can, because I want to do that, and I want to give that to the people who are fans of the brand and stuff like that. So he did that, and so we've always talked about the money side of things. Is that's if we never make that again, it's a shame, because all of the R&D and the effort into the original run is gone. And I mean, this happens with micro brands so often, right? Is that you create something that's fantastic, but it's not available again. The intent of that wasn't to kind of make sure it wasn't available again or anything, but it's from a consumer standpoint, it's not realistic for a lot of these brands to continue to deliver some of these things. It's a strain financially on them. And it's also, there's a lot of brands who are doing unique things, and it's okay to spread it around. I think that that's another thing, is that maybe somebody else will do it, and someone else has done super compressive styles and stuff like that. So people can get those things out there. But for us to do it long term, we can't rely on novelties. And to be here for a long time, we want to hit the mass market of being able to put great watches on as many wrists of adventurers as possible. And just like medallion yellow being the hero color, I think it's one of the things that is the brand's identity, because people have heard this story now told by me, from Travis, like their friends and things like that. And they often buy yellow because it is the brand color, and it's a reminder that it's on our boxes that today can be day one for you. Like, not just one day one, like you can start something new, you can do a thing, you can dedicate to yourself, and dedicate to a cause and do a thing. And if you put money aside, and that's something that we have done, is just put money aside and said, like, we expect to do this forever. So I will live a humble life so that we can fulfill this goal. because, both myself and Travis, I think, look at it as it's become a mission to do a brand for the masses, being inspired by brands like North Face, Patagonia, which had beginnings of delivering quality goods and consistently at not a cheap price, but affordable or just under a premium of the price that it should be. So we don't offer big discounts. We try to be consistent, as we mentioned with the trade-in program and stuff like that. We've been transparent entirely with what you get a trade-in, because we want people to know and have an expectation of what price they can expect to pay for us for forever. And that's a thing that is built into the brand identity, because to be honest, like if I get to be successful and blessed to do so in RZE, I'm going to continue to hike and camp and stuff like that. Like I have no need for a Lambo. I have no need for a Range Rover or anything like that. I plan to live in Canada and continue to do the things that I've done. And that's the true part of the brand identity, is that we're everyday adventurers doing everyday things. And that's really what life's about, is just kind of finding the time to enjoy the little things. Like you said, it's not an AP, but the way that we've made something that has a similar effect of a integrated bracelet without it having to be integrated, so that you can have the piece. I mean, that's the little nods that we're trying to integrate, so you can find those exciting little details in our watches as well as in our life, and inspire others to do the same. And our social mission is the part that we really want to grow, is that we know what we need to survive as a brand, and to continue to grow at a reasonable pace, and sustainably is the way that we put that. And I'm glad you mentioned earlier the green dial Resolute Pro, is that you'll notice that green Resolute Pro is actually dedicated to Project Forest, and that's rewild in Canada. So 15% of the sales of that watch that we never discount will go directly to planting trees in Indigenous land in Canada. So we did a food and medicine forest where there's generations of people who will now eat Saskatoon berries from the shrubs that were planted by Project Forest on our behalf and stuff like that. Because that's the part where we see, like, if we increase the price 15% so that we can give you a 15% discount, so that we can convince you you're getting a great deal, and you can feel like there's more value there, that's a temporary thing for us. Like I think that's just going to make one more sale as someone on the fence. But if we can create something that we can sell in perpetuity, that can provide in perpetuity, provide for the community in perpetuity, provide in continuing to carry out the brand identity and the lifestyle, it'll sustain us as well. It's a very honest way that we want to approach this. And that's why we think that product circularity and sustainability is a critical aspect of it, is that we understand it's a consumer good, but we also understand that 95% of the world right now probably doesn't wear watches. We can keep hitting the 5% that are the main enthusiast market and the kind of fringe audience of that, and smartwatches and stuff like that. But if we can just have people who, believe in our mission to, for example, rewild Canada, or we work with SARS Air Ambulance in Western Canada, an organization that they do all of the rescues for all the people who need it. Critical care and anywhere is their motto. And that's something where we see it in our everyday lives, where it's touching our lives. And that's what we want the watches to represent as well, as all the other people who are using the watches. Even if you have an adventure tag that's $19, even if you have a sticker that comes in the box, it's just that piece of the story we want to tell. So we're really thankful to everyone, especially like you guys sharing the platform to want to talk about the brand and share the story, is that this is how we grow, and this is how we can do it for this price, is because I hate to be cliche about it, but everyone talks about micro brands, and the old adage of, we cut out the middleman, we cut out all the marketing, we blah blah blah, and we go from the factory to you. And this is an example of where someone who's really skilled, Travis, who's been in the industry a long time, who's done all of those things since the kind of beginnings of that industry, and then as a brand identity, we've chosen to do all those things and create brand identity that is going to be a legacy. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for having me and sharing your platform.
Absolutely. And I just, when you mentioned camping and stuff, I just had this vision of a marketing campaign where people are sitting around a campfire and they're like, "What watch are you wearing?" oh, I've got this RZE on, and then they start Googling it, and they, oh, I'll order one, and everyone, or they're sitting on top of a mountain or something, if they get phone reception, that is. But a proper adventurer's watch. And thank you so much, Huiy, for sharing your brand with us and your vision.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And unfortunately, it's coming to that time where we have to conclude the show. So thank you so much, Huiy. Thank you again for the loan watches. We've thoroughly enjoyed them. And as always, to see our experience, our hands-on with these pieces and everything which we have mentioned throughout the show, make sure to visit www.chronopassion7.com for the best audiovisual experience. So you can listen along and all of the pieces, you can scroll, and they're all in order to the audio, and you can really enjoy a full-on experience where you can really see the details, what we're describing as we go through these pieces. So I'll do the classic sign-off. That is adios and hasta luego from Barcelona, and I'll see you in the next one.
And as Andy says, farewell from Barcelona. Huiy, would you like to say farewell to the listeners? Or have you said enough now?
I think I've said enough. Thank you very much, and thank you to all the listeners. We appreciate everyone for listening.
And as Huiy says farewell from Greater Edmonton in Canada, from London, it's Toodle Pip and laters, and we'll see you and you'll hear us in the next one.